A crowd sits on a Galilean hillside, somewhere around the year 30, listening to the most famous sermon ever preached. The grass is likely still green from the spring rains. The Sea of Galilee stretches out below them, catching the afternoon sun. The man sitting on the mountain has spent hours redefining everything they thought they knew about God, about the law, about anger, and about love. And then, as he brings his message to a close, he says something that sends a chill through the centuries. He describes a day that is coming, a day of judgment. He describes people standing before him, absolutely confident that they belong in his kingdom. They hold out a list of their achievements. They use his name, and he looks at them and speaks a single sentence that shatters their reality forever. "I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." There is a problem with how many of us read that sentence today. We read it as a threat aimed at every struggling believer. We read it as a haunting possibility that we might get to the end of our lives, having tried our best to follow Jesus, only to discover that we missed some hidden requirement and are turned away at the door. We read it and wonder if our works were enough, if our faith was real enough, if we accidentally disqualified ourselves without knowing it. But that is not what is happening on that mountain. Matthew chapter 7 verses 21 through 23 contain what are arguably some of the most terrifying words in the New Testament. But once you understand the original language, and once you see the specific Greek word Jesus uses for new, the terror shifts. The warning remains serious. It does not disappear. But it stops being a threat to the struggling believer who runs to Christ for mercy and becomes something else entirely. It becomes a warning to the religious performer who uses Christ's name while refusing Christ himself. The difference between performing for Jesus and being known by Jesus is found in one single Greek word, and understanding it changes how you read the entire passage. We are going to walk through the build-up to this terrifying verdict. Then we are going to look at the resume these people present to Jesus and why it is so dangerous. And then we are going to dig into the hinge of the entire passage, the specific kind of knowing Jesus is talking about, a detail that most people have never connected to their own quiet moments of doubt. Picture the scene. Jesus is wrapping up the Sermon on the Mount. He has just told his listeners to enter by the narrow gate, because broad is the way that leads to destruction. He has warned them about false prophets, who come in sheep's clothing but inwardly are ravenous wolves. He is drawing lines. He is forcing a decision. The crowds are used to hearing the scribes and the Pharisees, men who quote other men to establish their authority, but Jesus speaks differently. He speaks as if the authority rests entirely in himself. And then he says this, in Matthew chapter 7 verse 21, "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father in heaven." Slow down on this. The repetition is not an accident. In biblical language, repeating a name or a title twice often signals intensity, urgency, and personal address. Think about the pivotal moments in the Old Testament. God calls out to Abraham on Mount Moriah, "Abraham, Abraham." He speaks to Moses from the burning bush, "Moses, Moses." He calls to the young boy in the tabernacle, "Samuel, Samuel." Even Jesus himself uses this pattern when he weeps over the city, "Jerusalem, Jerusalem," or when he speaks tenderly to his friend, "Martha, Martha." To say a name twice is not cold or casual. It carries weight. It sounds close. It sounds personal. So when these people stand before Jesus in the judgment and say, "Lord, Lord," they are not speaking like strangers who barely know his name. They are publicly claiming closeness. They are using the language of intimacy. They are absolutely convinced that they are on the inside. But Jesus immediately creates a distinction. He says that using the right title, even using it with emotional intensity, is not the same as belonging to the kingdom. The issue is not whether the mouth can say, "Lord." The issue is whether the life has been brought under the will of the Father. And we will see what that means in a moment, because it is not what the Pharisees thought it was. Watch what happens next. The scene shifts from a general principle to a specific, terrifying prophecy. Jesus moves from the third person to the first person. Matthew chapter 7 verse 22 says, "Many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in your name, cast out demons in your name, and done many wonders in your name?" Here is what most people miss. Look at the resume they bring. They do not say, "Lord, Lord, did we not attend the synagogue every Sabbath?" They do not say, "Did we not give a tenth of our mint and cumin?" They do not bring the standard, ordinary religious checklist. They bring a spectacular resume, prophecy, exorcism, miracles. These are the three most dramatic public displays of spiritual power possible in the first century world. And they did it all in His name. The phrase "in your name" is repeated 3 times. In the ancient world, a name was not just a label. A name carried authority. To act in someone's name was to act as their representative, under the authority associated with that person. And that makes the scene even more sobering. These people are not saying, "We ignored you." They are saying, "We used your name constantly. We spoke in your name. We cast out demons in your name. We did wonders in your name." They are not outsiders to religious activity. They are surrounded by it. We know from the first century world that there were traveling Jewish exorcists who used sacred names and formulas. The Jewish historian Josephus writes about exorcistic traditions associated with Solomon. And later in Acts chapter 19, we meet the 7 sons of Sceva who try to cast out a demon by saying, "We exorcise you by the Jesus whom Paul preaches." They were using the name of Jesus like a spiritual formula, a holy password, a way to access power without actually belonging to the person behind the name. And here is the detail that changes everything. Jesus never denies that these people did these things. He never says, "No, you did not actually prophesy." He never says, "No, you did not actually cast out demons." He never says your wonders were all fake. He does not dispute their resume. He lets it stand. That means it is possible to be surrounded by the spectacular, to be associated with things that look spiritually powerful, to even be used in visible ways and still not belong to Christ. That is the part that should stop you. You can have a ministry that looks successful. You can lead people. You can speak true things. You can be admired for spiritual activity. You can even see lives changed around you and still be hiding from the one you claim to serve. Spiritual success is not the same as spiritual intimacy. The gifts of God are not the same as the presence of God. And then comes the verdict. Matthew chapter 7 verse 23 says, "And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." The word translated as declare is connected to the Greek word homologio. It means to speak openly, to acknowledge, to make a clear confession or declaration. There is no negotiation here, no quiet misunderstanding, no hidden technicality. Jesus speaks plainly, and the declaration hinges on one word, "knew." I never knew you. If we read this only in English, it can sound strange. How can the Son of God, the one who knows the heart, the one who sees what is done in secret, the one who says the hairs of your head are numbered, look at a human being and say, "I do not know you"? Of course He knows them in one sense. He knows their names. He knows their actions. He knows their motives. He knows every breath they ever took. So Jesus cannot be talking about a lack of information. Here is where the Greek matters. Greek uses more than one word for knowing, and these words can sometimes overlap. We should not make the distinction too mechanical, as if one word always means facts and the other always means relationship. Language is richer than that. But in this passage, the word Jesus uses is not about lacking data. The word is ginōskō. And in this context, ginōskō points to recognition, relationship, and covenant belonging. It is knowing someone not merely as a fact, but as one who belongs to you. Jesus is not saying, I never had information about your existence. He is saying, you were never mine. You knew my name, you used my name, you wore the uniform. You claimed to represent me, but we did not share life. You did not come under my lordship. You did not belong to me. To understand the weight of this, we need to look back at the Old Testament world behind this language. In many places, the Greek word ginōskō reflects the Hebrew idea of yada. Yada is a deeply important Hebrew word for knowing. It can refer to ordinary knowledge, but in some of the Bible's most powerful passages, it carries the sense of personal, relational, covenant knowing. Genesis chapter 4 verse 1 says, Now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain. That is yada, a knowing that is personal, embodied, covenantal, and life-giving. The same Hebrew idea appears in Amos chapter 3 verse 2, when God speaks to Israel and says, You only have I known of all the families of the earth. God was not saying he lacked factual awareness of Egypt, Babylon, Assyria, or the other nations. He knew all nations in that sense. But Israel was the nation he had brought into covenant. Israel was the nation he redeemed, called, commanded, disciplined, and loved with covenantal ownership. That is the kind of background that helps us feel the force of Matthew 7. Do you see what is happening? Jesus is standing as the judge of the universe, and he is using the language of relational recognition. He is saying that the ultimate question on the last day is not whether you performed impressive religious feats. The question is whether you truly belong to him, not whether you knew how to use his name, whether he knew you as his own. And here is something most people never realize. Look at the word Jesus places right before knew. Never, the Greek word is oudepote. It is an absolute denial. Not ever. Not at any time. Jesus does not say, I knew you once, but then forgot you. He does not say, we were close, but you made one mistake too many. He does not say, you belonged to me for a while, but then I stopped recognizing you. He says, I never knew you. From beginning to end, through all the prophecy, through all the exorcisms, through all the wonders, through all the public religious activity, there was never a true relationship. If you are a person who struggles with the fear of losing your salvation, if you lie awake wondering whether a specific sin pushed you over the edge or whether a season of doubt made God turn his back on you, this word, never, should make you pause. The people cast away in Matthew 7 are not described as those who had a genuine relationship with Jesus and then somehow lost it by accident. They are described as people who never had it to begin with. The tragedy of Matthew 7 is not a lost relationship. It is a fabricated one. Think of it like a marriage. Imagine a man who spends his entire life building a house for a woman. He paints the walls, he buys the furniture. He mows the lawn. He tells everyone in town how much he honors her. He spends decades working on this property in her name, but he never actually marries her. He never sits across the table and listens to her voice. He never enters covenant with her. He never shares life with her. He just works on the house. And when he finally goes to her and says, "Look at all I have done in your name. Surely we belong together," she looks at him with sorrow and says, "I do not know you. We do not have that relationship. You did all of this for your own idea of me, but you never actually wanted me." That is what is happening here. These people wanted the power of Jesus. They wanted the platform of Jesus. They wanted the reputation attached to Jesus. They wanted the authority of his name. But they did not want Jesus himself. They wanted his hands. They did not want his heart. Now here is where it gets interesting. Jesus gives a reason for his rejection. He says, "Depart from me, you who practice lawlessness." The Greek word translated lawlessness is anomia. The A carries the sense of without, and nomos means law. So the word points to living outside the rightful order of God's law and will. But wait, how can Jesus accuse these people of lawlessness? They were prophesying. They were casting out demons. They were doing wonders. They were highly religious people. In the eyes of many first-century listeners, they may have looked like the ultimate spiritual achievers. To understand this, we have to remember what Jesus has been doing throughout the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew chapter 5, Jesus takes the law and moves the discussion deeper than the surface. The Pharisees often treated righteousness as something that could be measured externally. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not break an oath. But Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said to those of old, but I say to you." He moves from the hands to the heart. Anger is not small. Lust is not private. Oaths do not make dishonesty safe. Loving your neighbor while hating your enemy is not the fullness of God's will. Jesus is not abolishing the law. He is revealing its depth. The true righteousness of the kingdom is not a performance checklist. It is a heart brought under the reign of God. So to practice anomia in the context of the Sermon on the Mount does not simply mean living as an obvious criminal. It means living as if the will of God has no rightful claim over the heart. It means doing religious things while remaining your own authority. It means using God's name while refusing God's rule. It means building your own kingdom with spiritual language. If this is helping you see these words in a way you have not seen them before, help us get this to someone else. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share it with a friend who might be carrying the weight of religious anxiety. That is how more people find this kind of study. Let us look deeper at the contrast Jesus is building. Look at the people he commends at the beginning of the sermon and compare them to the people he rejects at the end. At the beginning of the Sermon on the Mount, in Matthew chapter 5, Jesus gives the Beatitudes. He says, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled." Look at the posture of the people who receive the kingdom. They are poor in spirit. They come with nothing. They have empty hands. They mourn. They hunger and thirst for a righteousness they know they cannot manufacture on their own. They are dependent. Now look at the people at the end of the sermon in Matthew 7. Are they poor in spirit? No. They are confident in their resume. Are they mourning? No. They are defending themselves. Are their hands empty? No. Their hands are full of their own accomplishments. Have we not prophesied? Have we not cast out demons? Have we not done many wonders? They are pointing to themselves. Even when they stand before the judge of the earth, their defense is not his mercy. Their defense is their performance. They are relying on what they have done rather than on who he is. That sentence changes everything. The kingdom of heaven is not a meritocracy. It is not a place for spiritual high achievers who can prove they deserve a seat at the table because they cast out more demons than the person next to them. The kingdom of heaven belongs to the poor in spirit, to the broken, to those who know they have nothing to offer except desperate need for a Savior. The Apostle Paul understood this difference perfectly. Paul had the ultimate religious resume. In Philippians chapter 3, he lists his credentials: circumcised the 8th day of the stock of Israel, of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of the Hebrews, concerning the law, a Pharisee, concerning zeal, persecuting the church, concerning the righteousness which is in the law, blameless. If anyone could stand before God and say, "Look at what I have done," it was Paul. But Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus, and everything changed. He realized that all his knowledge, all his command of the Torah, all his zeal, all his religious performance could not make him righteous before God. He writes in Philippians chapter 3, verse 8, "Yet indeed I also count all things loss for the excellence of the knowledge of Christ Jesus my Lord." And then he says he wants to gain Christ and be found in him, not having my own righteousness, which is from the law, but that which is through faith in Christ. Paul traded his resume for Christ. He traded self-confidence for being found in him, and that phrase matters. Found in him, not found holding a list, not found presenting a trophy, not found standing on his own obedience as the basis of acceptance. Found in Christ. Paul echoes this same truth in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 3. But if anyone loves God, this one is known by him. Notice the direction of the knowing. Paul does not say, if anyone loves God, that person knows God perfectly. Our knowledge of God is not perfect. Our theology has limits. Our emotions rise and fall. Our understanding is partial. As Paul says elsewhere, we see in a mirror dimly. The ultimate comfort of the Christian faith is not that our knowledge of God is flawless. The ultimate comfort is that God knows his own. Jesus himself reinforces this in the Gospel of John. In John chapter 10, Jesus calls himself the Good Shepherd, and he says in verse 14, I am the Good Shepherd, and I know my sheep, and am known by my own. The shepherd does not merely have a head count of the flock. He knows his sheep. He knows their weakness. He knows their wandering. He knows their fear. He knows their need, and because he knows them, he lays down his life for them. The people in Matthew 7 did not want a shepherd. They wanted an employer. They wanted to do the work, submit the invoice, and get paid with salvation. But God does not hire employees into the kingdom. He adopts children. Quick word before we continue. Everything you are hearing represents hours of research in the original languages, comparing texts, tracing historical contexts, and seeking to understand the unified story of Scripture. If this kind of deep, unhurried study matters to you, consider becoming a channel member. That support is what makes this work possible and helps us keep digging into these texts without rushing. Picture a woman sitting alone in her car in a dark church parking lot. It is late. She has just finished volunteering for the 4th time this week. She is exhausted. Her marriage is struggling. Her patience with her children is thin. She is sitting in the silence of the car, gripping the steering wheel, crying because she feels like she is failing. She is terrified that she is not doing enough. She is terrified that her faith is not strong enough, that her works are not impressive enough, and that one day she will stand before Jesus and hear, "Depart from me." Have you been there? Have you sat in the quiet exhaustion of your own life, running on the treadmill of religious performance, afraid that if you stop running, God will stop loving you? Have you read Matthew 7 and felt a cold dread in your stomach, wondering if you are the one who will be turned away? 1 John chapter 4 verse 18 says, "There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment." That means right now, in that quiet car, in that exhaustion, God is not demanding a resume as the basis of your acceptance. He is not standing with a clipboard measuring whether your spiritual achievements are large enough. He is inviting you to stop performing and come honestly. The words of Matthew 7 are a terror to the proud, to those who think they can use Jesus while remaining untouched by Jesus. But they are not meant to crush the broken believer who comes to him for mercy. They tell us that salvation has never been about what we can achieve. It has always been about Christ, who he is, what he has done, and whether we are truly known by him. Now, we need to be careful with one more phrase. Jesus says the one who enters the kingdom is the one who does the will of his Father in heaven. So what is the will of the Father? Jesus gives a beautiful answer in John chapter 6 verse 40. "And this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day." That is where the will of the Father begins. Seeing the Son, believing in him, receiving life from him. But in Matthew 7, that faith is never presented as empty words. True faith bears fruit. It becomes obedience. it becomes repentance. It becomes a house built on the rock. Not because obedience purchases salvation, but because salvation brings a person under the lordship of Christ. That is the difference. The false disciple says, "Lord, Lord," but uses the title as decoration. The true disciple says, "Lord," and begins to come under his words. Imperfectly, yes. Slowly, yes. With repentance, struggle, growth, and many returns to mercy. But truly, this is why Matthew 7 does not allow cheap grace or anxious legalism. It rejects both. It rejects cheap grace because Jesus says the one who hears his words and does not do them is building on sand. And it rejects anxious legalism because the false disciples are not rejected for lacking impressive works. They have impressive works. They are rejected because their works are disconnected from relationship, surrender, and the will of the Father. The issue is not whether you have done enough to impress Jesus. The issue is whether you have come to Jesus at all. We started by looking at a crowd on a Galilean hillside, listening to the final words of a sermon that redefined reality. We watched Jesus dismantle the religious assumptions of his day. We saw the terrifying resume of the false disciples, prophecy, demons, and miracles, and realized that spiritual success does not equal spiritual intimacy. We dug into the Greek and saw that "I never knew you" is not about Jesus lacking information. It is about relationship, recognition, and covenant belonging. We heard the force of the word "never," and we saw that the tragedy of Matthew 7 is not a genuine relationship accidentally lost. It is a relationship that never existed in the first place. First, if you are carrying the weight of religious anxiety right now, if you are constantly measuring your spiritual performance to see if you are acceptable, this text is not calling you to polish your resume. It is calling you to Christ. The standard for entering the kingdom of heaven is not a flawless record of supernatural works. It is not prophecy. It is not exorcism. It is not public religious achievement. It is being found in Him, seeing the Son, believing in Him, and then living a life that bears the fruit of that faith. Second, remember what being known by Jesus actually means. It is not polished. It is not pretending. It is not presenting the best version of yourself while hiding the real one. To be known by Him means you come into the light. He knows your doubts. He knows the sins you are fighting. He knows the wounds you carry. He knows the days when prayer feels dry and obedience feels heavy. But intimacy with Christ is not built through pretending to be strong. It grows in honest surrender. When you come to Him with empty hands like the poor in spirit, you are infinitely closer to the kingdom than the person who comes holding a trophy. And maybe the part that stays with me most is this. The Jesus who spoke these terrifying words of judgment from the mountain is the same Jesus who 3 years later would walk toward another hill called Calvary. The judge entered the place of judgment. He allowed Himself to be rejected, mocked, condemned, and crucified. He bore the judgment sinners deserved so that those who come to Him in faith would not have to stand on their own resume. He entered the place of rejection so that the broken, the poor in spirit, the repentant, and the believing could be welcomed home. The warning of Matthew 7 is real, but it was always designed to drive us out of pride and into His arms. Subscribe if this changed how you read the Sermon on the Mount. Leave a comment. Even one word helps more than you think. Share it with someone who is exhausted from trying to earn a love that cannot be earned. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And as you walk through whatever this week holds, may you stop trusting your resume, come honestly to Christ, and rest in the grace of being truly known by Him. God bless you.